So today's our second lecture. Let me just introduce a little bit of Dr. Cheng. He is among one of the top anti-aging doctors in the US and China. So he has been helping patients all around the world to achieve their peak health. So this platform, the White Fountain platform we're trying to build right now, is to help everyone who is interested to learn more about anti-aging tips for our daily life. So maybe first, we'll invite Dennis Bai, the CEO of White Fountain, to give us a short introduction about White Fountain. Dennis, you there?
Yes. I apologize. I have a problem with my video, so I'm just talking here. My name is Dennis Bai. I work for a company called White Fountain. We are a startup company established this year, and our mission is to discover drugs for the anti-aging purpose. In particular, we're looking solutions for medical treatment for aging-related disease such as cancer, cardiovascular disease, as well as Alzheimer, like that. So we are in the drug discovery business, and our strategy is use a yeast, a microorganism yeast-based high throughput screening system. Our approach is that we use yeast for the preliminary screening, and then we're going to move on to animal tests such as a mouse test, then eventually in human tests, and we hope in a few years time horizon we'll be able to reach the milestone of having a drug candidate for the clinical trial, eventually for human treatment. And we are it's our great honor to have Dr. Cheng to give us or to share with us all his expertise in the clinical consultation, as well as patient treatment, advice, suggestion. Dr. Cheng has a very rich experience in that category, which is a great complementary to our drug discovery business. So I'm handing back to Dr. Cheng.
No, thank you. Thank you, Dennis. Well, so before we start our lectures, first, Dr. Lee, can you please share the short video on our first lecture?
Okay, sure. Thank you. Let me do that.
So that's about our last lecture. Currently we're since the first lecture, we already have 200 people in our the group chat. So to discuss about first lecture, and now we're also following up in the group chat on WeChat. So there's a lot of people who are benefited from Dr. Chen's first lecture. So let's start our second lecture. So I'll invite Dr. Chen to start.
All right, thank you, Jesse and Ed and Dennis. In the last lecture, in the last the 2 minutes short summary video, basically we take a integrative approach to as a clinician, whatever helps, we need to apply it, and that's the basic. Whatever is effective, safe, affordable, then we'll do it. That's the basic idea. And so, how do we eat to lose weight? That's basically how to lose weight. Okay, that's the key. It is the very fundamental issue. This is about me. And here, first of all, let me show you a few cases of weight loss. We've been doing, when I was back in Washington, D.C., in my subspecialty training at the National Cancer Institute, I was working part-time for a weight loss clinic. And that's how I got involved in weight loss. I said, that's pretty fascinating, actually, Early on, at the beginning, it was boring. Later on, I realized that's very important. Now, so I've been doing this for couple of decades. Now, this is Gloria. She lost, this is recorded in 2011, like 11, 12 years ago. She lost 176 pounds or 80 kilograms, more than half of her body weight in 13 months. And as you can see, this is a chart. Thanks to Cynthia, she's been developing this database. We have a database tracking the weight. We can track all the parameters. Yes, it's our internet-based database, and we are a very small clinic, but I realize how important these tools are. So we need tools, okay? So Dennis can give us tools, okay? And so basically, Gloria lost a lot of her weight. And this is another Suzanne, lost 33 kilograms, 1/3 of her body weight. And this is yet another MZ, lost also about 34%, 37 kilogram body weight. And you can see a few bars here. That's our marker in our database. Green is the ideal zone. So this lady achieved her ideal weight. Okay. And this is a man. I remember him. 400 pounds, lost about 27, close to 1/3, 150 pound-ish, And this is yet another 33% of body weight. Those are mostly some of our American patients here. We also have been increasing busier practice in China. Started about 10 years ago. That's when we met with Jesse, actually, in Beijing. And this is a CEO from Beijing, as you can see. He's 10 years younger than me. Anyway, he had these, when I remember when we met, he gave me a booklet of physical exam reports. He gave me like 3 or 5. He went to this 301 hospital in Beijing, and Jesse, there's a top niche military hospital. He'll pay like 50,000 yuan, which is close to 10,000, 9,000 US dollars. Anyway, he gets a report. There's nothing else to do. I mean, a 5-star treatment. But anyway, looking at the report, I remember he had like 17 diagnoses. He said, looking at my report, don't you think that's I'm like a 70-year-old man? I said, yes. He actually is 10 years younger than me. But anyway, long story short, we helped him to lose weight. And this is 3 months later. His company went IPO, and this is how he looked. Okay. This is a more recent case of one of our WeChat clients. And this on the right, you see her, big belly right there. And on the left is the picture she took before she communicated with me. Not only she lost a lot of weight, again, she also lost about 1/3 of her body weight. More importantly, but also her blood pressure has been under great control. It used to be like 240, and after this, she doesn't take any medicine anymore, and it's pretty normal, 120 over normal. I don't remember now, but it's normal. So that's I want to say blood pressure actually is one. Lowering sugar and lowering blood pressure are 2 of the easiest things to me. Okay, to me, not very challenging. And I have more challenging things in medicine that I like to do. But for those people who are struggling with their sugar or blood pressure, try this. And of course, in addition to other measures. Now, what I want to show you here is a common energy dilemma. We know type 2 diabetes, oftentimes when they start, they are obese, right? Obese meaning what? They have a lot of fat. What's fat? Energy. So obese diabetic patients, they have a lot of energy stored in their body. But we also know oftentimes some of them, when they skip a meal, they will develop a low blood sugar symptoms, being cranky, tired, sweating, sweaty, sleepy, all these issues, right? So I oftentimes use that analogy. These people are like beggars begging for food with a golden bowl. They have a lot of energy packed in their body. But when they skip a meal, they need energy. Their body is not able to release the energy to use. Why? That's the question, right? So that's what we're going to discuss today. How? So basically, here is a cartoon on the left showing you our body. We all know our body uses a glucose and fat dual fuel or dual energy system. We can burn both glucose and fat as energy. Of course, we can also burn protein, but protein is not really the primary source for energy. So we're going to talk about just fats and sugar, right? So the problem here is, as you know, is that they've been telling us, actually, I used to tell my patients too, is that fat is bad for you, for your heart disease and everything else. So basically, they've been demonizing fat. And of course, if you don't eat fat, what do? What do you eat? Proteins, I hate proteins actually, like a turkey meat in the United States, chicken meat, they're boring, tasteless, right? It's the sugar and fat that tastes good. So if you take away the fat, what's left is sugar. Okay, we're not going to go into conspiracy theory, this and that. But anyway, a natural result is that people tend to eat a lot of sugar, mostly carbohydrates. So that we know is diabetes takes at least 10 years usually to develop. So over the many years, your body has been primarily burning sugar as fuel, not burning fat as fuel. Therefore, after a while, your body use it or lose it. If you don't burn fat as energy, so all the fat burning factors, for example, the receptors, the hormones, the enzymes will be minimized or deregulated or downregulated, right? In biology words. So basically, so your body, diabetic patients are not able to burn fat as fuel because over the past many years, they didn't do that. All of a sudden, you skip a meal, your sugar goes low, your body is not able to burn fat to supply energy. That's why they begin to develop these symptoms. Okay, that's the major issue. Here, I also list here is that glucose, our body doesn't store a lot of sugar. We store about 500 grams of sugar in our muscles and in our liver in the form of so-called glycogen, only 500 roughly, okay? And we probably know, some of you know, the sugar contains glucose, carbohydrates have about 4 calories per gram. So 500 grams is only about 2,000 calories. And an average lady in the United States spends about 2,000 calories a day. Therefore, that's you have only about 1 day's storage energy supply as sugar in your body, whereas fat is practically unlimited, as you know, right? So here are a few types of fats. On the right, I listed 4 of them: the structural fat, the subcutaneous fat, the visceral fat, and the brown fat. And on the left is a cartoon showing you the subcutaneous fat. Those are the normal on the skin everybody has. These are the normal energy storage fat. Okay, of course, it does other things like a thermal, it keeps us warm and the protection of these other things. But the visceral fat, as you know, the internal organ, fats around the organ is the bad fat. Okay, what is structural fat? We know more than half the weight of our brain is fat. So when people call you fat head, well, tell them, yes, it is fat. I do have a fat head, okay? And also we have a lot of cells in our membrane, in our body. More than half of our cell membrane is also fat. Now, these are structural fats. So when you skip a meal, when you want to burn fat as energy, you don't want to burn your brain fat. You don't want to lyse to break your cell membrane to burn fat, right? Because those fats are for structural functions, not as fuel. There's a difference. The difference is in the cell membrane. Fat is the same. However, the cells that store fats are different. They can respond to these various signals, hormones, enzymes, all these things. Okay, that's a difference. So our normal subcutaneous, under the skin fat, these cells have receptors responding to our hormones, whereas the visceral fat doesn't. These cells don't. That's a major difference. Okay, and here I want to also mention about liposuction. Liposuction, as you know, is a global, popular surgery for weight loss. Actually, I really recommend don't do it. Why? Because liposuction, what you do is you use a probe under the skin, suck out the fat. You're sucking out the normal fat. The bad fat is in the organ, around your liver, your stomach, and your intestines. Those are bad fats you want. You can't suck them out because that will kill you. It's dangerous, right? So that's that. Brown fat, as we know, babies have a lot of brown fat. Adults also do. We're not going to talk too much today. Now, we already mentioned early on as a holistic view. There are a lot of, so why do we become obese? Okay. Oh yes, yes, but there are many other fats. Some are more important. In red is what we'll talk about, but the others like emotion, we know, stress eating, anxiety, depression, lack of exercise, yes, nutritional deficiency, vitamins, minerals, yes, they can contribute to obesity. Toxins, yes, I will show evidence later on. Hormone, yes, definitely. Thyroid, we all know, right? So basically, after is a I want to tell you, this is my daughter Sophia. She drew this for me. Anyway, so our modern medicine, one of the major problems is, you see, we classify diseases as heart disease, as cancer, as diabetes, or as obesity. But we don't realize, a lot of people don't realize, mainstream medicine doesn't realize, is that these things actually they share very similar common roots. Poor diet, unhealthy lifestyle, nutritional deficiency, toxin accumulation, to name just a few. Okay, so this is the major difference Dr. Bagley mentioned early on, is that, we're based on the same science, the same literature, but the interpretation is different. Like Dr. Dennis Bayer mentioned earlier, this is a system work. Don't look at just one angle. We are looking at the whole. That's the key message I want to give you. So today, I'm not going to talk all about this. This you will see this list over and over through our lecture. Any lecture I will show this, is that because these are the categories I put them in. So the root causes and also the solutions to these problems, more or less, they will fall into one or more of these categories. That's my summary of my study of anti-aging medicine. So but today we're focused on diet. Well, talking about exercise, let me show you this. And a lot of people exercise, but have you seen anybody who is able to lose weight by exercising only without dietary change? Probably very few. I have not. Okay. Anyway, this is me. Of course, I want to show the nice one. Okay. Here on the skinny one is me. This is a few years ago. This is a friend of mine, and I have been playing badminton with him for 12, 13 years, at least 12, 13 years. We're of the same height, about 5'10", 176 centimeters. And he actually exercises more than I do because he's at the university. He, as far as I know, he goes to play almost every day, and he also has a gym at home. I don't. I mean, I play badminton usually between 2 to 4 times a week, and I rest in between. But the main difference I want to mention is I have been doing low-carb ketogenic diet plus intermittent fasting, of course, in addition to also molecular nutritional supplements. I've been doing this for more than 10 years, okay? And he's been on standard diet, so-called standard American diet, SAD diet, very appropriately. Yeah, his belly hasn't changed. He's still like this, and I'm still like that. Okay, so diet, out of all these factors we mentioned, is the key. If you can do the diet properly, most of your weight problem will be solved. Okay, for most people. So I'm going to cover a few of these other factors, then focus on that later on. First of all, this one I want to show you. This is a research. Nutritional deficiency in obesity. Yes, nutrition deficiency contributes to obesity. And here I show you, Dr. Bagley, he's a vitamin C expert as well. And vitamin C, yes, helps weight loss. I have quite a few patients reporting to me taking vitamin C helps them lose weight. One, of course, this talks a lot about promotes the metabolism and everything else. So let me tell you something else. Is vitamin C, particularly when I take high dose, is actually it cuts my appetite. I don't feel that hungry when I'm taking vitamin C. Yes, vitamin D also helps significant weight loss. Okay, yeah, just show you a few. Okay, endocrine, I mentioned about thyroid. Yes, obesity very tightly related. We know thyroid controls mostly our metabolism. If you have low thyroid, of course your metabolism will be low. You'll gain weight. Okay, that's one key. But we're not gonna focus today on these issues. Okay, yes, hormonal testosterone helps weight loss. This is another research. This is one of the recent one, 2018. Okay, yeah, we mentioned about heavy metal. Yes, accumulation of toxins promotes obesity. Why? In summary, actually, these nutrition, hormones, and toxins, they all impede our metabolism. They hurt our metabolism. In a summary, we can think that way. Okay, this is endocrine toxins and environmental toxins causes obesity. Okay, and so the chemicals we know in our drinks, in our plastic bottles, all these things. These are also called endocrine disruptors. In the body, they will mess up with your thyroid. They will mess up your sex hormones, particularly for women. And now there's a paper back in end of June about over today is right now, about 2.5, almost 3 months ago, on Lancet or Nature, I forgot, one of the top major journals, is that environmental toxin contributes to 16% of the global deaths in 2019. Close to 10 million people died in 2019. 16% are due to environmental toxin related. Of course, toxin contributes to a lot of issues, including cancer. But anyway, that's the idea. I'm showing you. What I'm telling you is all science-based, not just out of the blue. Okay, but I'm going to focus on that. Now, over the past couple of years, we translated the book into Chinese, and that got me into this diet. I mean, of course, diet is more, but I didn't use to look into the ancestry of that. But this is a illustration that highlights basically I look into how human diets evolved over the past million of years, at least hundreds of thousand years until modern day. Okay. But here is a summary. Again, thanks to Cynthia, she helped to make this illustration here, is that humans have been mostly, we all know, hunters and gatherers, okay? To make a long story short, let me tell you this, lots of scientific evidence exists in the literature that's showing that humans were mostly eating, of course, we are omnivores. However, we were eating, our ancestors prefer fatty meats to plants. Okay, so humans were more of a animal-based food eaters than plant-based. Okay, we're not gonna, of course, controversy. We're not gonna spend a lot of time today debating on that. But moving forward, agriculture showed up about 10,000 years ago. As far as I know, the earliest record of rice is about 9,000 years ago. Wheat started in the Middle East area and about 10,000 years ago. So when agriculture started about 10,000 years ago, people started settling down. People started changing from like a meat, animal-based diet predominantly to a sort of crop plant-based diet. That's how the shift started changing, okay? And about 200 years ago, the processed foods started showing up. The first one is like sugar and oil, okay? Over the past couple of decades, 70, 50, 60, 70 decades, pesticides, GMO, processed foods, all these things started showing up. Actually, this is probably Google trend. It should be processed foods, not prepared foods, right? And anyway, so this is the sort of like timeline of how our diets have been changing. Here is again another illustration that we made over the diseases, basically dietary change versus modern diseases. One thing we want to highlight here is in the red here. Maybe we should change the color. That doesn't stand out very well. Is the omega-6 oil consumption is closely related to all these metabolic syndrome, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, all these things, okay? And this is a very under-recognized area. Basically, these seed oils, the cheap oils that you can buy on the market is pretty bad. We're not going to go too much into that. In my couple of lectures down the road, I will be talking more about it. Now, so in the summary, this is a little cartoon again, since it helped, that summarizes my recommendation of diets. And basically, there are two, three, four kinds here. Low carb intermittent ketogenic diet. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more later. This is applicable to practically everybody. Now, for people with metabolic diseases, cancer, autoimmune diseases, we become a little bit more strict. Ketogenic diet. Basically, ketogenic diet is a more strict version of the low carb intermittent fasting ketogenic diet. Okay, and carnivore ketogenic diet. The difference between this and the ketogenic diet is that I further restrict certain plant-based foods. The reason being, a lot of plant-based foods contain a lot of natural toxins, for example, lectins. Okay, this is the area that a lot of people don't realize. Actually, lectin type of, we know gluten, actually. Everybody knows gluten, wheat. Gluten can cause our leaky gut with irritable bowel syndrome or these, problems, right? Actually, gluten is one type of lectins. There are many other lectins, and many of these lectins can cause problems. And autoimmune disease, hopefully in the lecture, I will talk a little bit more about this, okay? And so these are top of the fat and intermittent fasting. Basically, I advise this to everybody. Yes, everybody. Let me add a little bit more here about intermittent fasting. I often say, we keep, after we started living in high-rise, buildings, basically after people settle down, and after we put on clothes, fancy suits and leather shoes these days, we forget we're fundamentally animals. In the wild, have you ever seen any animal that gets fed 3 times a day? No. So our today's diet actually is again of human nature, okay? And on this, I want to add one more sentence here. A lot of scientists, doctors, so to speak, these days, they will ask you, oh, do you have RTC, basically randomized clinical trial to prove ketogenic diet, this or that? Actually, I want to ask back, do you have any RTC to prove 3 meals a day is essential and necessary? Right? You have to think this way. What we do every day doesn't mean it's normal. Okay, for example, in China, and as far as I know, before Song Dynasty, which is about like 1,000 years ago, I heard 3 meals a day started about since Song Dynasty. Okay, but anyway, that's about intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting, I'm gonna talk a little bit more here. This is a research of this year showing you when you go on fasting, the change in your the so-called substrate. Basically, what do you use here? Let me explain to you. On the left chart graph here, the x-axis is the hours after the last meal, basically fasting, right? If you don't eat, that's called fasting. And the yellow is the fat, green is the carbohydrates, and the red is protein. So after a meal, within a few hours, your carbohydrate, because if you are on a standard American diet, eating a carbohydrate-rich diet, right? So you are burning mostly the carbohydrates as energy. But this goes down pretty quickly, okay? At about 12 hours, you drop to about half. So this is one of the foundations why we recommend intermittent fasting of 13 hours or more per day, not to eat. The reason for that, the purpose for that is we want to reduce your sugar, because a lot of people have high sugar these days, right? So if we do 13 hours or longer, your sugar will drop to more than half, right? So another thing I wanted you to point out to you is that you see, this is 72 hours, 3 days fasting, your protein metabolism doesn't change much. Meaning, if you fast for 3 days, you don't lose muscle. Not to worry, because some people worry that if you go on fasting, you may waste your muscles. No, you don't. So after 24 hours, your sugar level practically dropped to the very low level. I think I just mentioned in one of the earlier slides that our body stores about 500 grams of carbohydrates in our body. So if you fast for 24 hours, practically you deplete your glycogen or sugar storage. You're clean. You don't have very much of the sugar left. So your body gradually, starts burning fat. That's what we want, don't we? Right? So after a standard meal, high carb, your fat contribution is very little, but more and more energy will gradually coming from fat. Eventually, it will become dominant, more than 80%. This is in fasting. So yes, fasting induces ketosis, basically makes your body burn fat as energy. Well, let me explain a little bit ketogenic diet. Some people may not know. Ketogenic diet, meaning in English word, is ketone producing diet. So ketone bodies are the end products of fats, the smallest molecule of fat. So ketogenic means ketone producing. So basically, when you metabolize fats, you make ketones. That's called ketogenic diet. Okay, you can measure ketone bodies in your body. You can measure from the breath, in the blood, or in the urine. Okay. And okay, so the quickest way to get your body into ketosis just means that the status of your body is you're making producing ketones. Okay, so this is how I usually recommend people to start their fasting. Of course, depending on health condition, you want take it gradually. I'm going to talk a little bit more. Okay, take it gradually. You don't have to rush. No rush. Okay. For example, you may fast for 12 hours for a few days. When you get used to it, you may further prolong to 14, 15 hours. See how you work. Okay, gradually, it takes time. I've been doing this for over 12, 13 years. Okay, and let me tell you this. Today, I went to play badminton. I don't know if any of my badminton friends are here, because I have quite a few badminton friends who have big belly, and they're much younger than me. They have endurance issues. Today I didn't eat anything, and I played badminton from 10 to 12 over 2 hours, and I didn't feel hungry. And I come home, I didn't eat until about 2:30. I'm going to show you a little bit more later. So that's that. And so this intermittent fasting, there are a couple of ways to do intermittent fasting. And I found that the easiest way to get used to actually is the one on top, 16-8 or 18-6. Either way is fine. Basically, fasting 16 to 18 hours a day, meaning you don't eat, you can drink water. Basically, you can take practically anything that doesn't have calories in it. Basically, no proteins, no carbs, no fats, no sugar, of course, right? You can drink water, you can drink tea. Of course, you don't add cream or sugar into these things. You even can take vitamins if you want to, okay? And the idea here is we want to restrict the calories, because if you do not take in calories, you will be forcing your body to burn internally stored energy. That's the idea. If you provide the calories from your diet, your body doesn't have to burn your stored calorie fat. That's the basic idea, okay? So another way to do is so-called 5-2. Basically, you eat regularly 5 days in a week and fast 2 days every week. Okay, that's another way. And alternate day is one day eating, the other day fast. Okay, but I found this first one is easiest. So this is what I do. I put on here. My first meal in the day, basically, I don't eat anything. I drink only coffee in the morning and vitamin C water after coffee, of course, separated. But I don't eat anything before noon. Okay, normally I eat probably between 1 to 3 o'clock. Occasionally maybe at 12, but definitely not before noon. My last meal is probably usually between 6 and 8. Okay, so this will make up to maybe about 6 to 8 hours a day, and the rest of the time I don't eat. Okay, and basically my major meal in a day is this lunch meal, is lunch, and I will show you. I think I have yeah, here. Okay, and I eat so much. I mean, actually, I don't eat much, but I feel very full. You know. So dinner time, for example, today I came home. I told you I had about 2:30ish. I had a bulletproof coffee. Basically, it's a coffee. It's a tea actually. I had green tea, dragonwell tea, and I put in 60 grams, half a stick of butter. That's all I did. And then after that, I also had a small glass of milk and a few grapes. And I had a few of these ketone snacks, those snacks, and put a little bit cream cheese on it. That's all I ate. And I'm not hungry. I haven't eaten anything. I'm not planning on eating anything tonight. So I eat only one meal today. And so I try to also do a 24-hour fasting once a week. We're not going to talk too much about biology of fasting. I showed you a little bit. I have a few slides to show you fasting help, improve health and other things. Okay. Now this is I took a picture some time ago. On the lower one, I want you to see. This is a flask, and I use tea or coffee, or you can use hot water. I have to do hot water. Putting butter in it, like butter, and use a hand stir it. Oftentimes, I may also add some ketone bodies called BHB, beta hydroxybutyrate. It's a product you can buy. It's a ketone body. Basically, instead of forcing your body to make ketone, you can drink it too. That helps exercise, other things, and of course, I also eat some proteins and some vegetables. Okay, I don't eat breakfast. Now, talking about diet a little bit here. This is a slide from a medical journal last year. Basically, standard American diet versus ketogenic diet. It's incomplete, but the standard American diet on average probably contains more than half of its carbohydrates as the energy source, okay? Compared to ketogenic diet. This is nutrition, macronutrients ratio, okay? Basically, fats make up anywhere between 70 to 90%. The majority of the energy would come from fat, okay? And you will keep carbohydrates at minimum. Basically, you don't eat any carb foods like rice, wheat products, potatoes, any of those starchy foods. You got the idea. No sugar, of course. No ice cream, definitely, right? And you want to still keep some protein, anywhere between 5, 10, 20%. Okay, something like that. So basically diet, there's this so-called nutritional ketosis. This is on the far right is more of a nutritional ketosis diet. And in the center is more of like a therapeutic for example, epilepsy. And there's another one called restricted ketogenic diet. We reserve it for cancer patients. Here, next few slides, I'm going to show you some scientific research of the ketogenic diet benefits, health benefits. Here, first of all, this is research that shows ketogenic diet helps you lose weight. And the ketogenic help you lose more belly fat. Ketogenic diet, yes, helps you burning more fat during exercise. And that's particularly interesting. And also hopefully those people, anyone interested in exercise, this helps. This also explains why I have much better endurance on the badminton courts than people younger than me, let alone a similar age, because my body is able to produce energy, okay, from the fat. I think we have a slide to show you later. This is, of course, ketogenic helps lower blood sugar. Ketogenic diet, yes, decreases insulin resistance. We know insulin resistance is a major problem these days of obesity, of diabetes, and many other problems too. This is a very, very fundamental one. Yes, ketogenic helps reverse or improves this situation. And yes, ketogenic diet helps lower lipids, triglycerides in particular. It may increase your the good cholesterol. And yeah, I mentioned the ketogenic diet. Actually, about 90 years ago, ketogenic diet was first used in the seizures, epilepsy, and that's how it got started. Actually, there are reports saying that maybe this was over 2,000 years ago in Greece or something, the ancient Greece, they already started doing this. But anyway, at least in modern literature, about 90 years ago. Here is what I'm very interested in, is that this is a recent paper, 20, what is that? Anyway, ketogenic diet improves exercise endurance and also the recovery from exercise fatigue. Okay, and that again explains. I advise my badminton friends to do this, is because you will be in a much better, more efficient energy mode in ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting. Also, because our normal standard American diet, has a lot of sugar. When you exercise, particularly when you exercise to a more vigorous exercise, you will burn sugar to make a lactic acid, lactate. And a lot of people after exercise, they feel muscle sore. The sore major reason is because of the accumulation of lactic acid. Okay, and the ketogenic diet, on ketogenic diet, actually you do not produce lactic acid. That's why it helps. That's one reason it helps your recovery. Also, ketogenic diet itself is antioxidant. It's anti-inflammatory, so it recovers much faster. This is all science proven. Okay, and I already mentioned, I think early on in the review as well, is that this ketogenic. This is one of the recent review journals on one of the Nature subsidiary journals, Signal Transduction and Targeted Therapy, reviewing the ketogenic diet for disease management. Like I mentioned, we have been. This is a basic part of our protocol for disease management. We have been able to reverse many incurable diseases. And we mentioned about mitochondria. In the last slide, last lecture, I showed you this. Mitochondrial dysfunction is one of the hallmarks of aging, and actually practically present in every chronic disease that I know of, that I have researched. Okay, and here is some of the recent papers summarizing the research showing ketogenic diet, and I mentioned the beta hydroxybutyrate, BHB, that can improve mitochondrial function. This is important. Okay, why I do this? Mitochondrial function, I have been interested in this topic for over 10 years now. And there's a grammar mistake I need to correct. I already showed you, I don't know if I showed you a slide, but I showed you this cartoon here. Basically, using this approach, we've been able to help reverse, yes, coronary artery disease, type 2 diabetes, weight loss, hypertension is easy, I told you, gout, health, autoimmune disease, that's one of the major areas. So many patients. Cancer, yes, emotional, depression, endocrine, like PCOS. Yes, this is a fundamental part of our protocol. About cancer, I want to particularly mention this. Some of you may know the picture in the center, like a Christmas tree. This is so-called PET CT. Okay, and the PET-CT uses a theory, observation. It's not a theory. Is that cancer cells take up a? Let me play a video here. That would.
Why cancer patients should go on a low-carb diet? Because cancer cells eat between 50 and 200 times more sugar than the normal cells. This is the reason why PET-CT, which is a standard cancer diagnosis tool, is used. When radio-labeled sugar is injected into the cancer patient, the cancer cells will pick up a lot more radiation than the normal cells, so the cancers light up like a Christmas tree. So just from this point of view, it simply makes sense to cut out the sugar from the cancer patient's diet.
So I'm not going to discuss too much about cancer, but that's the idea, right? Makes sense, right? And Dr. Seyfried, Thomas Seyfried from Boston College published this book, Cancer as a Metabolic Disease. Actually, it's mitochondrial dysfunctional metabolic disease back in 2012 or 14, which we have it translated a couple of years ago, 2018. Actually, this is getting very popular in China, particularly in the cancer field. I'm pretty, my name is getting out there too. And we invited we held an international symposium back in 2018. And we invited Thomas there. Almost every year I invite him over for a lecture. And this is in the 2018 Baltimore conference, me with him. Anyway, so we're not going to talk much about that today. So a few tips of ketogenic diet. I already showed you this picture. Okay, let's talk a little bit more, a few minutes left, and then we'll talk about this, is that how do we do ketogenic diet? Intermittent fasting, I already said, it's pretty simple. You gradually shift over, you will, early on, you may feel a little hungry. Basically, here's the thing about intermittent fasting, is that try to start 13 hours fast first. That's easy to do. For example, if you eat your dinner at, let's say, 6 o'clock, so you don't eat breakfast until 7 a.m. That's easy, right? Said that's 13 hours. So if you can do that, next time you push for another 14 hours. How about 8 a.m.? Or you eat your dinner earlier, 1 hour earlier, 5 till 7. That's 14 hours. Then gradually pushing. Okay. I like everybody else, I used to eat breakfast. If I don't eat breakfast, I feel hungry. But now I don't eat breakfast, I don't feel hungry. Okay. And so here, let's talk about keto. Now, first of all, ketogenic, a few tips. By definition, you don't eat any. Look at this is a typical meal of mine. You don't see any rice or bread or any of those products. Don't eat any of those. Of course, these things, they still contain a little bit of carbohydrates, okay? So that's easy part. Now, fat roughly should make up about 80% of your daily calories. So I recommend, usually I don't just count, okay? Of course, this also depends on your body weight. For example, overweight people, today we're talking about weight loss. So for weight loss purpose, you want to control, first of all, no carbs and protein. Let's talk a little bit about protein. You also want to probably control your protein. Of course, this is another controversial area. A generally accepted level of protein would be about 0.8 to 1 gram per kilogram body weight. Let's say if you are 70 kilogram, right? So you'll be eating about 70 grams of protein a day, or a little bit less, okay? Like I showed you, if you fast for 3 days, you do not lose muscle mass. So you can feel comfortable doing the fasting, okay? Even when you go on ketogenic diet, you can add basically, what I'm saying is you can add fat as calorie source, cut out the carbs. You can also cut out the protein or minimize the protein without getting into trouble. Okay, you don't lose muscle mass. And so protein basically has about 4 calories per kilogram, per gram. Okay, so if you eat, let's say 50 grams of protein, that's 200 calories. So the rest will be coming from fat. I don't really count. I just, this is the, let me show you how I did my bulletproof coffee or tea. Basically in a flask or in a glass, and you make a tea or coffee. Then you put in butter. What I do is usually I always do 60 gram, half a stick of the butter I put in there. 60 gram times 9, that's 540 grams, calories of energy, okay? And oftentimes I may add a little bit of beta BHB. So you use a handheld stir. It's pretty expensive on Amazon. You stir it. Make sure you mix it very well, okay? Otherwise it tastes like oil. When you mix it, particularly tea or coffee with butter, it tastes like creamy tea, creamy coffee. It tastes good, actually. You can add a little bit salt if you want to, and you can add a bit of cinnamon or these kind of things. But usually I don't add anything except maybe BHB. Okay, I like the taste. I tried other fats, but butter is what I like. I almost always use grass-fed, high quality butter. Okay, so lunchtime, usually this is my meal. I drink this. This is pretty stuffy, I'm telling you, okay? And also I oftentimes may have a small steak, or maybe I have 3 eggs and 2 or 3 strips of bacon, something like that. Then I have a little bit of vegetable. Usually I'm not going to talk too much about plant toxin or these things, but the green leafy vegetables in general are okay. And you want to stay away from legumes or those things. Okay. And of course, other than these, definitely minimize your processed foods, right? And start with raw foods. Make sure, ideally, of course, I know we live in a modern day society. You want to go have fun. I tend to go out once a week with my family. Yes, have some fun. But other times, try as much as possible cook from raw foods on your own, okay? Try to use a variety of foods, including meat. It's hard in the United States, I know, okay? And you want to rotate, for example, beef, fish, pork, turkey, chicken, whatever you can find, okay? And the idea here is that you want to have a balance. Practically, if you know how to eat meats, you can get all the kind of nutrition there, okay? And of course, try, if you can, to get organic or less contaminated. A lot of the studies actually of our diets, they do not take into consideration of contamination. Drink lots of water, and if you can, I would also recommend some basic vitamins, minerals, micronutrient supplementation. But we're not gonna talk too much about those today. I already mentioned to show you the vitamin C, vitamin D. Most of the people today, these days, are deficient in nutrition. In the United States, at least 90% of people, yes, 90% are vitamin D deficient. I want to go on further, nearly 100% are not vitamin D optimal. The difference between deficient and optimal is the range, normal range, okay? We use a higher range. For example, I recommend 50 to 100 nanogram of vitamin D. But we're not going to talk about that. One day we'll talk particularly about also nutrition. I like to invite Dr. Bagley to give a lecture on this as well later on. Okay. Now, when you are not used to, when you start in particular, there's something called keto flu. Basically, when you start switching your body from carbohydrates dominant diet to ketogenic diet or low carb diet, you may experience some sort of discomfort or side effects. In general, we call it the keto flu. Basically, it's like a mild flu type of feeling. I never felt it. Okay, most people don't. And the symptoms, including, for example, here, the brain fog, nausea, diarrhea. Diarrhea, yes, it may happen early on, particularly. Why? Is because you are drinking a lot of oil. Okay, and so I used to get this also. Is drink a lot of oil, you don't digest all of it, but gradually your body will pick up. I don't do that anymore. I don't have diarrhea anymore because I think my body is able to metabolize, digest the fats I eat. Actually, about this, I want to add one more thing. Constipation is a pretty common medical condition these days. A major reason for that is because we don't eat enough fats in our body. When you are on a properly, a proper ketogenic diet, you shouldn't have diarrhea, okay? Because ketogenic by definition is a lot of fat. If you ask any old person, grandma, grandpa, they'll teach you if you have constipation, have some oil, okay? Muscle cramps, body ache, constipation, well, I don't, some of it is people don't know how to do it, I think, because one of the common things I should have included a picture here is that ketogenic diet is not high protein diet. Okay, let me repeat. I should have added that slide. Ketogenic diet is not high protein diet. Don't confuse that. Okay, high protein diet may cause constipation. So, so basically, one of the major reasons why you develop these side effects, probably not only in your switching energy metabolism switching phase, but also some of the fat soluble toxins. Our body has a lot of fat. Toxins can be categorically divided into two groups, the fat soluble and the water soluble. So the fat soluble toxins, chemicals, mostly the plastics are usually fat soluble. So when you get these toxin plastics in your diet, in your water or diet, so they go into your body, they store in the fat cells. So when you lose weight, when you burn fat, these fats will come out of fat cells, along with them the chemicals, the toxins, heavy metal too. And these things, they can, depending on your storage and how much you release, they can make you feel sick. This is actually a major reason why people have keto flu. This is in toxicology, they call it the secondary intoxication, because when you first get these toxins, you get intoxicated, you may not realize, but now they are released into the bloodstream, you may feel it again. So drink a lot of water and take it easy gradually. And some of it may be, because when people start switching, they don't really know how to do it. So there may be electrolyte imbalance. For example, typically people may be low on potassium. In the general population, a lot of people are probably low on potassium too. Magnesium definitely low, okay? We're not going to talk too much about nutrition today. So that is a major reason. When you do that, so basically when you have these symptoms, take it easy. Okay, drink a lot of water, rest a little bit. And basically the Rome was not built within a day, so take it easy gradually. And usually in my experience, between a couple of days to 2 weeks, you get used to it, so-called keto adapted, okay? And sick patients like diabetic patients may take a little bit longer. If you have metabolic diseases, particularly diabetes, I advise you to go under a trained, experienced professional's supervision. Don't do that on your own, okay? Once you know how your body responds, then you can try to sort of try different things. All right, that's our general warning, okay? You are otherwise healthy, without these problems, you can play it. But the general rule is take it gradually, slowly. If you develop issues, you can back up, take a step back and restart, okay? So that is basically about the ketogenic diet and the intermittent fasting. Let me tell you this. If you just do this intermittent fasting, ketogenic diet, if you do it properly, rightly, you will lose a lot of weight, okay? And I haven't met anybody who is not able to lose weight, let me put it this way. Of course, about weight loss, we have many other things we can help you, which I'm not gonna talk about today. Okay, so yes, we can. There are many ways, hormonal adjustment, appetite suppressants, metabolism enhancement, vitamin nutrition, and so any questions? I'll take a break here.
Thank you, Dr. Chen. We actually have one question from Dr. Maha.
Hey, Dr. Maha, I know her, yes.
Yes. So in the chat, Dr. Maha is asking you, so do you recommend a detox before the program or weight loss?
Well, actually, that's an excellent question. Actually, I recommend a detox during weight loss ketogenic diet. The reason for that, if, for example, oftentimes, depending on situation, if a patient comes in, I may recommend a sort of 7-day fasting. 7-day fasting, as you say. In general, I do not recommend more than 7 days because it can get into other issues, for example, reverse thyroid hormones and adrenal response or whatever. But we're not gonna. So in general, the current research shows within 7 days is probably what I recommend. Now, so when you go on fasting, like I mentioned, your body starts losing weight, losing fat, and the toxins get released. This is when you want to detox, okay? Because if you don't lose, if the toxins still in the fat cells not coming out and you detox, yes, of course, you get rid of the whatever's in the other parts of your body, but you don't get, So in detox, oftentimes we may include the way, I'm sure Dr. Maha also had this so-called liver detox. Basically, these are nutrients. These fat-soluble toxins in our body, we have to understand. How do we get rid of these toxins from our body? We know urine. But urine only gets, you can get rid of the water-soluble toxin because urine is water. If it's fat-soluble, it cannot come out of the kidney, right? And the other route is from the GI, from gut, from the liver to gallbladder into the colon, into the intestines. That's also largely water. So the plastic, the fat-soluble toxins, when they are released from the fat cells into your blood, they need to be chemically modified to become water-soluble in order for our body to get rid of it. And this process is called a liver detox. There are, usually we call it like 2-3 phases. There are different chemical reactions converting these chemicals to become water soluble. And in the process, you need a lot of, these groups, these nutrients. And so when you put these things together, giving these patients, then they will speed up the liver detox process. So that's called a liver detox. Yes, I recommend it. Particularly, for example, a typical scenario when we manage cancer patients, particularly cancer patients who are on the, of course, complicated, right? Cancer patients. If their body weight is overweight, their baseline is in shape, oftentimes I stop on fasting. Fasting kills cancer cells and everything else. But also, I usually, start them on a fasting along with nutrition detox. Yes, I do. Yes. Hey, Dr. Maha. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you, Dr. Chen. And another question is from Nicole. It says, what to do if you're getting too skinny on the keto diet?
Okay, yeah, that's another good question. What the skinny is fine, and what it is, we don't want to lose muscle. That's the key, right? So we want to have normal muscles. We don't want a lot of, hopefully, no belly fat. I'm still good. I actually, the last 6 months or so, let me tell you a little bit of a story. The last 6 months, I've been more strict on ketogenic diet because after I came back from China, I was a little bit relaxed on the diet, so I was eating a little bit more carb. The thing is, when you get used to it, it's really hard. I understand, okay? So I began to realize, actually, when I was playing badminton, I felt more easily tired. I had a slump in my, oftentimes I felt so exhausted I couldn't move around. Of course, in badminton courts, if you don't move around, you cannot return the shots. Then I went on to, more strict ketogenic. After that, it never happened anymore. So I began to lose more weight, actually. So coming back to answer that question about the weight, other than carbohydrates, the other factor is the protein amount. If you get too skinny, you want to make sure your protein is sufficient. Okay, you don't want too much protein, but you don't want insufficient amounts of protein. Other than that, your hormone, particularly thyroid hormone, is another major factor influencing your weight issue. Okay, And so you want to check into that. We didn't talk much yet. Hopefully, we'll talk about this one time. I gave a talk on this in particular about mitochondrial energy, muscle, basically. You know, sarcopenia is an aging, basically older people lose muscles, and it's called sarcopenia. It's a big issue. And so mitochondria, again, here, muscle mitochondria is important. Nutrition is very critical, like the body know. We in also medical medicine, we are very much into high dose niacin. And as you know, today you have an NMN on the market. It's a similar thing, niacin, except niacin has been around for a much longer time and much more studied, much better known, and it's cheaper too. Anyway, so that answers the question about how to, skinny. Basically, you need to eat right. Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you, Dr. Chen. Yes. So there's a question from Dr. Lee. It says,
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
You read it. You read it for everybody else.
Yeah. It's, do you eat or drink after exercise while doing intermittent fasting?
Oh, intermittent fasting, well, first of all, what is fasting? Let's redefine it. Fasting strictly means no calorie. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you can drink water, you can drink tea, you can drink coffee without sugar or any calories in it. No cream, no sugar, no calorie. If you don't eat calorie, you are fasting. You take vitamins. I mean, of course, I'm talking about pure vitamin that doesn't have any sugar in it or any calories in it. So that still doesn't break your fast. Okay, fasting simply, strictly meaning very easy to understand, no calorie. Which foods have calorie? Carbs, fats, and proteins. So anything that contains carbs, fats, and proteins have calories, and that will break your fast. Of course, the more you eat, the more, the less the result. Yeah, there's something called a fast mimicking diet. I don't really like that concept because it's confusing people. You're kind of it's like you're smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. Now, how about you smoke 5? I mean, if you fast, just simply fast. Okay, it's not that hard. Don't confuse people. I don't like that concept. But anyway, yes, you can drink water, but you don't eat.
Okay. I think the question is also when people fasting for a longer time during the day, let's say they're only having like a late lunch and dinner. Mm-hmm. And so in the morning, they might want to exercise. So if you do a lot of weights in the morning while you exercise, so after that, if you're not take any protein, will you lose any muscle?
No. That's, of course, I showed you a study that shows that 72 hours fasting, you don't lose muscle. Basically, think about it. Actually, that's a very excellent question. You think about the protein in our body. Proteins are our structural material, right? Proteins are mostly in the muscles and also in our cells. Protein is not designed as a fuel for our body. Let me use an analogy. For example, you have wooden furniture in your house, fancy wooden furniture, right? Thousands of dollars or even more. And you wouldn't burn your furniture to get heat from it normally, right? Unless under some unique special circumstances, you are freezing to death. You have no choice. The last thing you will do, you will set your furniture on fire to stay warm. Make sense? It's a very similar scenario to our human body. Our human body will not burn muscles when there is sugar and fat available. Okay, it's that simple. Now, so again, like I mentioned, once you fast beyond 7 days, that's a different story. Couple of things may happen. For example, when you start fasting, because you have to think your body, lots of your body functions are not under your control. For example, you cannot control how fast your heart beats, right? Like right now, I don't feel palpitation. I don't feel, right? I'm pretty normal, maybe around 60 beats per minute. I said, okay, you could speed up 100 beats. No, it doesn't listen to it. Our heart has its own commanding structure. It doesn't listen to me. And the same thing, a lot of our bodily functions we cannot control. I cannot control my metabolism. I cannot control how fast or how slow my thyroid works. So what happens when you go on fasting? Your body senses. It's called a nutrient sensing. Yes, you are the biological mechanism. It senses you are not getting calories coming in. Your body doesn't know you are intending to do that. Or it feels that, okay, you don't have calorie coming in. Okay? So when you don't eat, when you don't have calories coming in, your body starts changing. Part of the change is starting releasing fat. The other part of changing is your body says, wait a minute, what's going on? Why we don't get calories coming in? And so your thyroid hormone may start changing. Why is it? The brain, automatic, okay? Another second brain out there somewhere is like, wait a minute, we're starving. So we need to start conserve energy, slow down metabolism. Because you don't know, your body doesn't know that you plan on eating like 3 days later. Right? It doesn't know. So the longer you are on the fast, the more significant response from your thyroid will happen. So basically, one of the ways your thyroid responds is by producing something called a reverse T3. It's a thyroid hormone, except it's a reverse, it's a mirror image to your normal thyroid hormone, T3. T3 is the real thyroid hormone, okay? And this hormone, basically it can bind to your thyroid hormone receptors all over the body, but it doesn't work. So basically it's taking up the spot and blocking the normal thyroid hormone from functioning. This is how our body adjusts to slow down metabolism. Okay, you don't want that, right? I'm sure nobody today, these days, we want our metabolism to be fast, okay? So that's one thing that may happen. In general, this may become a more significant issue after 1 week, particularly 2 weeks, okay? And so that's something you want to avoid. One other issue is that once this reverse thyroid T3 increases, it's really hard for us to get rid of, okay? So that's one thing you want to keep in mind. Another thing is our adrenal gland. We know, we all know about cortisol. Cortisol is a hormone that we use for autoimmune disease, right? For people with lupus or with cancer, these kind of diseases. And you want to use this, cortisone type of drug to suppress your immune reaction. So our adrenal glands produce cortisol. Our adrenal glands, as we know it is a stress response organ. For example, right now, everybody is quiet, comfortable, sitting in front of a computer or your mobile phone, listening to a lecture, relaxed. But God forbid, something happens, all of a sudden, something happens, emergency. Then you get alerted, right? All of a sudden, your adrenal hormone, the cortisol, is being released. It's called a stress hormone. Because the stress hormone prepares you to fight or flight, right? So that's the biology. Now, so of course, cortisol does a lot of things. For example, one of the things it does is to cause your sugar to go up because you prepare your body to have energy, okay? So-called going through gluconeogenesis, making new sugar molecules in your body. And so when this thing happens, your body will be more excited, and so this thing the problem today is that a lot of people are overstressed. Too many things are stressing us out, and we're not going to talk go into detail of this. Hopefully one day we'll talk about adrenal fatigue. This is a common issue in modern day society. We mentioned about the holistic lifestyle. On the very top is the stress, anxiety, depression. These things really suppress your adrenal functions. Okay, when people, are short-tempered, it's not only a psychiatric issue, emotional issue. Very likely it's a physiological issue. This person may have what we call adrenal fatigue or adrenal insufficiency. Basically, these people, they don't have enough adrenal reserve. Now think about it. This is a very interesting area. Let me give you a scenario. We have a couple of CEOs, bosses here on the program listening, right? So a good leader, what is a good leader? An experienced good leader is that when you have an emergency, you stay calm and you process the information, you work quickly and decide a course of action. Like, for example, we're driving on the road. Somebody suddenly cuts in front of you. You automatically, your cortisol goes up, you respond, you stay calm, you change your route, this whatever. You don't scream and shout, right? So in your life, around you, in your home, at home, in your family, in your workplace, if you see people, when they face an emergency or something, they scream, well, that very likely this person may have adrenal fatigue. Why? Because this person is not able to handle the stress. And the way they do is by panicking. Stress, shouting is actually a sign of panicking. Okay. Anyway, maybe that's talking too much. Coming back to this. Hopefully I answered the question.
Thank you, Dr. Chen. There's actually more questions. Another question from Dr. Lee is, can one still enjoy tasty food such as fruits, bubble tea, or hot pot while practicing keto diet?
Okay, yeah, actually, that's a very good question. Yeah, is that we need to balance our life, right? Because, for example, like I just mentioned, tomorrow is Saturday. I plan on going out with my family for dinner. I will drink a beer. Talk about alcohol is a typical one of those sort of fun things in our life, but alcohol doesn't serve any benefits to health. Okay, alcohol at any amount is bad for you, right? But still, once in a while I drink it. Why? Because it makes fun. So here, the point I'm making is that we have to understand what you're doing. What you're doing here is for fun. We live a life still, right? Because we don't want to live, I don't know, no offense here, is that we don't want to live like a monk, right? We like to enjoy life. So answer your question, yes, you can. For example, I just mentioned that intermittent fasting. For regular people, even for actually cancer patients, after a while, okay, we do that too, is that you can relax once a while. For example, me, once a week, I go out to have a meal. I mean, I'm going to China pretty soon. Probably I will be start eating out more often. But yes, once a while you enjoy a little bit. But again, let me show you this slide. Did I stop? Can you still see the slide? But never mind. On that, I have a slide. Showing you these, the diets. I didn't talk about it there. Is that I wrote down there, I said, enjoy carbs as snacks, not as a major source of your calories. Okay. If you want to have a little bit of rice, once, for example, ramen, instant noodle tastes good, right? Because it's bad for you. We all know that actually. But once in a while, actually, this year I may have had twice, every 2-3 months. Yeah, sure, I just don't do it all the time. This is the thing, is that oftentimes we start eating once a week, then next thing you know is twice a week, then before you know it, you're back to the old habit. So make sure you don't do that. Yeah. And fruits. Yes, every day, I usually mid-afternoon, I eat an apple. About fruits, try not to eat too much very sweet foods. Those are fructose, high fructose, bad for you. Okay, and the apple, the berries are good. I oftentimes like blackberries, cherries. Those things taste good. And if it's too sweet, try to have a few pieces. Don't eat too much. That's the bubble tea. But by the way, what is bubble tea? Let me ask you in Chinese. Bubble tea, is that 奶茶?
Yeah, bubble tea is 奶茶, and
it's not healthy. It's not healthy. Once
It's
in a
not-
while, you want to have a little bit, it's okay, but it's not healthy.
What about a milk tea with the drinks with stevia?
That's okay. You can do that. Well, about
Okay.
this, let me also add something else.
Okay.
I used to, now not much so. I used to have very sweet tooth. I'm from Shanghai area, and the area famous for sweet foods, and the Chinese people know that. So I used to eat a lot of sweet foods, okay? And that actually is addictive. Let me tell you, the one it's bad. I used to eat like 5 scoops, American scoops, very big, okay? I eat 3 scoops, and I go back for 2 more. I did it for quite a while back, many years ago, embarrassing. But anyway, long story short, over the past maybe 15 years, whatever, more than 10 years for sure, I've been cutting out low carb with this and that. So now actually interesting enough is that actually have changed. For example, you mentioned about stevia. We use monk fruit extract and we use stevia. Once in a while, I like to, normally I don't eat any foods with added sweet into it. And occasionally we'll do a Chinese so-called hong sao rou. Basically, it's the pork belly, fried with sugar and soy sauce. So once in a while I eat it, but I don't use sugar. I use these monk fruits extract or this and that. But when we put a little bit extra, I felt that it's too sweet. So now, if it's something that's a little bit too sweet, I don't like it anymore. So the point I'm making here is that whatever the old habit you have, you can change it. The key is change it. When we start, don't try to learn how to. Basically, when you start, learn the right way, the hard way. Do not be creative when you start, okay? Because if you don't learn the right way, you'll never learn the right way, okay? So when you start very, very, I mean, basically the idea, like what I'm saying is that once you get used to it, it's not that hard. For example, I don't need to eat sweet food anymore. I don't feel missing it. Actually, once in a while they have too much, a little bit too sweet. I feel I don't like it,
That Dr. Cheng, I think I've been through those sessions talking about sugar. Heroin, right, is addictive as drugs.
Yes,
So
actually, probably more.
Yeah, a lecture on that, so people will know.
Yeah,
like
that's important. You get used to it, gradually go on this, and like I said, I don't do that anymore. I don't like very sweet foods anymore. My taste has toned down. Actually, I can enjoy. It's very interesting. Right now I can enjoy a lot of plain tastes. The natural tastes that tastes much better than these heavy taste foods.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Chen. I think, Dr. Lee, I hope that answers your question. We can discuss more about it later.
Yeah.
And so there's another question from Dr. Mahan. So is there yo-yo effect after a keto diet and how to deal with it?
Well, yo-yo diet can happen to anybody and anything. So basically, yo-yo just means you're going back to the old style. So you can go on a ketogenic diet, and then once you, for example, like some people may try go back to eating a little bit more than they cannot control it, right? And then you just start eating more and more. You go your old lifestyle, you will be back your old yourself. Yes, you may. But if you do, like I said, we have to understand basically, that the body, well, first of all, before I forget, that the body writes here, sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine. Yes, cocaine is pretty addictive, sugar is worse, and that the body speaks French. I don't know French too. Is let me show off my French a little bit. There's a French saying, il faut manger pour vivre et non pas vivre pour manger. We got to know there are 2 types of eating. one is to eat to stay alive. The other part is to eat for fun, right? So the French people are smart here, is that, you got to eat to live. You don't live to eat. That's the point, okay? So, like I said, once a week, you can enjoy a little bit, but when you enjoy again, it's the quality, not the quantity. Hopefully you enjoy the quality. Like I used to, when I was drinking beer, I could drink 2-3 beers, no problem, Of course, I don't drink anymore. Even this, now at home, I don't drink beer. I have beer store somewhere. I don't miss it. And I go out, on a weekend to have a beer, a little bit. But the idea is that we have to stay disciplined, no matter what you do. And once you get used to it, actually, it's not that hard. I live a pretty regular life, and I found it very enjoyable. Badminton, these things, Okay, any other questions?
Thank you, Dr. Chen. And another question from the group chat, actually, because a lot of people, your followers, are actually, some of they are vegetarian, so or vegan, plant-based. How can they do keto? Like,
okay,
like avocado as a good fat or nuts?
Yes. Okay, that's a good question. Now, about vegans, vegans meaning they don't eat any animal sourced food. There are various types of vegans, but primarily they eat plant-based foods. We have to be aware of a couple of issues. One is the nutritional deficiency in vegan, okay? Is that, you have to understand there are about at least 7 nutrients that are deficient. They practically plant foods don't have, period, okay? Is that, for example, we all know about omega-3. There are 3 basic omega-3s, including something called the DHA. And DHA, not all omega-3s are the same. You know that, right? So DHA is a type of omega-3 that our brain health requires. It's essential, okay? From baby to adults to seniors, everybody needs DHA for our brain health. But DHA only exists in animal foods, not in plant foods. So if you eat a pure plant-based foods, you will be deficient in this. There are other things like carnitine, carnosine, B vitamins, and a bunch of others. So you have to be aware of this nutritional deficiency. For example, let me give you another, I think we talked about last time too, about vitamin A. We all know keratin, the carrots. Keratin is the vitamin A for plants, not for animals, not for humans. And for humans, we have vitamin A. Our body is able to convert keratin to vitamin A. However, that conversion efficiency is very low, probably 3%. Okay, so that's another issue you have to understand. A lot of the plants and animals, humans are 2 different biological systems. Okay, and just like a Macintosh and Windows computers, they all look like computers, but their internal components are totally different. So are the plant and animal kingdoms. You have to understand that. So on vegan diet, first of all, you need to, I have a paper in Chinese, and I'm planning, now I have more time, I'm going to start doing English as well. Anyway, so if you do a vegan diet, make sure you understand what nutrition you have, nutritional deficiency you have, and you may want to supplement it. There's no other way, okay? For example, there are at least 2 reasons for vegan diet. One is religious. My mother is a Buddhist. She practices Buddhism for over 50 years. She's been vegetarian for a long time. I cannot change her. I know. So what I do is I package a nutrition supplement for her specifically, is because she is deficient. I can see my father loves meats. I can see my father, is healthier than, most stronger and better. So that's one thing. Now coming back to this, how to do the ketogenic. Yes, you can do that. For example, Jesse already mentioned about avocado, olive oil, coconut oil, avocado oil, and also there's a tea. What is that? The tree.
Yeah.
There's a tea tree. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
also a good source of oil. You can use as well. And avocado is pretty common, you know. So you can use those as a fuel, energy source. Olive oil is very good, of course, we know that. Yeah. And of course, protein. You know, talking about vegetarian diet, you know, first of all, you cut out carbs, then you can get a lot of oil from what we just described, and then the protein. Now we have to be aware of the protein. In general, the plant-based proteins are less effective than the animal-based proteins. In science, there's a term called bioavailability, meaning if you eat 100 grams of animal protein versus 100 grams of plant-based protein, you probably get only about half of the protein from plants, okay? And there's a lot of research in that field to show that. So if you are doing that, you know, plant-based protein diet, and protein, you may need a little bit more. Okay, there's other issues there. You know, my advice is that if you can change, I would advise you change. But you know, any other questions?
Thank you, Dr. Chen. Yes, there's a question from Dennis. He's asking, is honey a better sweetener than sugar?
Yes, I think that's, yeah, it's a great idea. Yes, you know, a little bit honey that, you know, adds a little sugar. Oftentimes, also another thing is that I found that you can use some berries. You know, you can use some berries. You know, mush it up and as a you know, sweetener. You know, for example, I buy organic no sweetener the yogurt plain. What I do is I add a few pieces of grape or cherries, I cut it up and mix it, adds a little bit of sweet flavor. You know, you can do that as well, or natural honey. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Chen. So, Dr. Chen, I have a question. So, like, I know on the keto diet, a lot of people felt not confused, but there is a guideline to follow, right? So certain, like, how many percentage of carb and how many percentage protein and fat. So was it can you give us a promise guideline?
Yeah, no, let me give you one general, let me tell you what I do. I just mentioned, you know, a typical lunch for me, you know, oftentimes you know, my mind is always, because I got a lot of projects these days. I'm always thinking of, you know, learning, writing, whatever. Anyway, so lunchtime, oftentimes what I do is I get the 3 eggs. Now you have to learn some basic nutrition, okay? You Google it, you know, online search, learn some basic. Basically, my advice, whatever the foods you like, okay, you can write it down. And then you Google it, or you go on internet search to find the nutritional information. For example, we have to understand eggs. Eggs, on the average, each egg has probably about 6 to 8 grams of protein. So you know, if you eat 3 eggs, you're probably getting about 20 grams of protein, right? And so, for example, another, you know, example, beef. Beef, 100 grams of beef, you probably get about 20 grams of protein. Okay, if it's Chinese pork belly, pork belly, very fat, right? You probably get about 10 to 12 grams of protein. And every day, you know, for example, me, I eat about 20 to 30 grams of protein for lunch. Then I may eat a little bit more protein dinner time, but that's it. Okay. Of course, this is a controversial area, so, you know, about how much protein. But one of the ideas out there is that when you are on fasting, intermittent fasting, what happens to your body is something called autophagy. Basically, our body is able to recycle the old and sick cells in our body and reutilize the nutrients in these old cells, including protein. Therefore, there's a group of scientists believe, and practitioners as well, is that when you're on fasting, actually you don't need that much protein, because when we break down our old protein, we can reutilize that. Now, ultimately, of course, for you is how you feel and how your body changes, okay? You want to, after you're doing these things, after the initial keto adaptation phase, anywhere between a couple of days to a couple of weeks, you should feel more energetic. This is what most people report, okay? Their mood is usually more stable, and you have much less hunger feeling. I think I already showed you those slides. Much more stable mood and much less craving, and less irritability. The brain oftentimes is more clear, okay? And overall, you are more energetic. That's how I feel as well. I've have a lot of patients doing this. Oh, by the way, let me say this. I already mentioned it. This is our starting point. We'll treat practically every diseases. Today, weight loss is so important. We all know it, is that because it is the foundation of practically all of the diseases out there. Okay. Jesse, did I cover the topic?
Yes. It was just how to do keto. I think you showed example on kind of influence or kind of give a guideline how to do a keto diet through our daily practice. So, and then I think everybody can, as you just mentioned, Google a little bit on the guidelines on keto and try it for some time to feel see how your body feels.
I also, if you encounter issues while doing that, you can exchange with the rest of us on the social media, whether it's WeChat groups or Twitter or we need to form an English, like a group as well, so that the English speaking people can, people who are outside of China don't use WeChat, we can also, exchange, learn from each other, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that'll be great. So does anyone has any questions? Because we only have 10 minutes. So Dr. Cheng, want to give us a closing? Oh, is grape good fruit? Aaron?
A few pieces. Grape is very, very sweet. And I recommend, again, in general, if it's very sweet, try to be very careful. You can have a few pieces, these too much. You may have heard of some syrup, that it's added into everything, snacks, all these things. Basically it's fructose, and it's bad. The fruits are high in fructose. Fructose probably is even worse than glucose.
And then, so Dr. Chen, I just want to confirm, actually, fructose also go through your liver. Right. So. Yeah,
actually, a lot of people have fatty liver. That actually, fructose is probably worse than glucose to fatty liver. You want to cut down.
Yes, because
about this, I want to add one more thing. A lot of people, a lot of misinformation. This is actually the true misinformation. And I don't want to get me started on misinformation. People, they promote the vegetable fruits are good. So a lot of people eat tons of fruits. It's bad for you. Don't eat. We are not birds. Well, I don't know if birds eat a lot of fruit. We're not monkeys for sure.
They do. They do. You're absolutely right. I think because glucose, we can use our whole body to process it, but fructose, we can only liver. So it's really bad. So fruit actually is not a good thing.
No, I mean, you can eat a few pieces, but don't, for example, I didn't eat any watermelon this year, I don't miss it. Every day I do have a little bit cherry, a few grapes, a few pieces of grapes, and blackberry, but that's about it.
So one last question. So as a keto diet helps on the cholesterol, you mentioned that earlier it helped to gain the good cholesterol.
That's a very good question. That opens up another can of worms. Okay. First of all, some people may experience elevation in total cholesterol, and even LDL cholesterol. Okay, there's a paper talking about by Nick at a group I know them. Basically talking about so-called lean mass responders. The point I'm making here, the key point here is that we should not be afraid of cholesterol. That's the key message. And this is something I have been focusing on, and I want to complete this. I did I think that was the group was Dr. Bali's group. I talked about cardiovascular disease. We touched about it, but I haven't had a chance to summarize in a paper. I mean to. Basically, here's the thing: is that if you look at the literature, if you are familiar with medical literature, searching all the time, read all the time, it's well established and accepted in general in the literature that cardiovascular diseases, particularly atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, namely coronary artery heart diseases, okay? These diseases and strokes, these diseases are inflammatory disease in nature. If we ask anybody, any doctor, even cardiologists, they would know it too. It's an inflammatory disease. But when they turn around to talk to a patient, they forget. They keep on talking about cholesterol again because that's how they're trained. They are trained wrongly, okay? Now, what does it mean being an inflammatory disease? And this is something actually I'm going to focus on in my next two conference lectures. One is in September in Tokyo. The other is in December in the A4M conference in Las Vegas. I'm going to focus on oxidative stress in chronic disease and acute disease in COVID-19 in the Las Vegas conference. Inflammation, we know, in other words, we can call it, we all know about reactive oxygen species or free radicals, okay? The underlying molecular pathology of inflammation is elevation of free radicals or oxidative stress. Basically, it's the balance or the imbalance of having too many toxins and not enough antioxidant nutrients, including vitamin C, D, magnesium, all these things, okay? That's the bottom line. As a result, cardiovascular coronary artery diseases, diabetes, obesity, these are all due to this factor, okay? Cholesterol is only an intermediary process. It's also well established in the literature. It is not the LDL that is found in the heart. It is the oxidized LDL molecules. Today's laboratory testing of blood chemistry is wrong. Blood lipids is wrong. They only measure so-called LDL. LDL, there are so-called large molecules, smaller molecules, there's oxidized molecules. So basically, if you look into the detail in literature, it is the oxidized LDL molecules, the small dense molecules that's accumulated in the coronary artery vessel walls. It's a phenomenon. It's like a temperature. When you catch cold, you have infection, you have fever. Fever is not the root cause. It is a symptom. LDL deposition into the blood vessel walls is also part of the body's response. It's not the root cause. Lowering cholesterol doesn't help you. Okay, lots of research showing that. So the bottom line again is that you need to improve your nutrition. You need to detox. On the list I showed you. Again, every lecture I will show that list. By living a healthier lifestyle, intermittent fasting or things we're talking about, by you can ideally testing and remove those toxins or minimize those toxins, and also living a healthy lifestyle to further reduce the intake of these toxins, plastic or heavy metal. Antibiotic, don't use. I haven't used antibiotic for a long time. I don't even prescribe that anymore. Anybody ask antibiotic, I give them high dose vitamin C and D, a mixture. I haven't failed in any even severe COVID-19 cases. I don't use antibiotics. Okay, and also the vitamins. We will have at least one lecture talking about nutritional deficiency. particularly vitamins, at least one. I think one doesn't cut it. We need a couple of many of them. So anyway, hopefully that answers the question. Don't worry about it. And also, mention about cholesterol, let me tell you this, is that niacin, we talk about niacin, vitamin B3, high dose niacin, actually International Society of also Molecular Medicine, the founding father, Dr. Hoffer, he was an expert in niacin. He started the whole thing, okay? High dose niacin reduces cholesterol. Actually, it's as far as I know, it's the only FDA approved vitamin that can be used as a drug to reduce cholesterol effectively, yes. There's no drug out there that effectively reduces the LDL cholesterol than actually that elevates the HDL cholesterol, that also reduces the LDL cholesterol. Myself, I've been taking high dose vitamin niacin, and all those cholesterol start coming down. My LDL goes up too. Anyway, so that answers that question. Oh, by the way, let me add something. So actually, we talk about coronary artery disease. I've shown we have at least a couple of cases now. I put those people on ketogenic diet. Those people with coronary artery disease, I put them on ketogenic diet. Okay.
So they recovered?
Oh yeah. Yes, I have a video on the YouTube. Basically, let me tell you. I think I introduced this case last time, but too much information. Yes, I have a gentleman now is like 62. It's a CTA confirmed. CTA is CT angiogram. Basically, you inject the dye, radio thing into your blood, and then you take a CT, and you can look at the, of course, these things turn up white on your X-ray film, right, on the screen. You can calculate compared to the normal how much narrowing stenosis. So this patient had the near and the mid end of the coronary artery of one of them, LAD, narrow stenosis, so to speak. Okay, and after being on our program for 20 months, he's still on it. Okay. And he had 3 CTAs at the very first time, and 8 months into it, and then 20 months from the beginning. You showed gradual improvement. The last one is gone completely. Same place, same department. We have more than one case. Okay.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's interesting thing. That's what I said is about challenging. These things are very interesting, is because these are incurable diseases. Now we are able to reverse them. This is fascinating,
Yeah, including diabetes, right? I see a lot.
Diabetes is easy, like I mentioned. I want to mention a little bit diabetes. I haven't been able to summarize that thing. To me, in diabetes, there are at least 2 major problems. The first major problem is that the mainstream medicine people, doctors, still don't want to recognize and accept the low-carb ketogenic diet to manage diabetes. Okay, you say, think about it. This is very interesting. Is people understand diabetes as a high sugar disease, and so on the one hand they eat carbohydrates that raise the blood sugar. On the other hand, they try to give medicine, the insulin, to reduce sugar. It doesn't make any sense, does it? Stupid, right? So you cut the source. You reduce the sugar intake. It naturally reduces the sugar, as I showed you here. Sugar, there's a ton of research on it. Okay, yeah, so that's natural, and so those advanced people begin to accept this, but still that's only superficial. Well, the very bottom line is that diabetes is more than a sugar problem. Okay, a large couple of studies out there. Okay, and basically larger surveys that show actually even well-managed diabetic patients, they do not have reduced complications of microvasculature, meaning, like, for example, eye complications or like a diabetic foot or these things. Why is that? Because, again, diabetes is more than just a sugar problem. Diabetic patients, they tend to have more nutritional deficiency than average population. They also tend to have more toxin accumulation than other people. They tend to have more mitochondrial deficiency. They tend to have more higher oxidative stress. So those are a lot deeper. Very few people really realize this. Anyway, so that's about diabetes.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much for a great session. So next time maybe we can talk about like nutritions.
Okay, we'll start nutrition next time. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, thanks everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. Chen, for a
Thank you for
great.
everybody. Thank you for everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Chen.
Thank you,
everybody.
Dr.
Sure.
Chen.
That's
Thanks
fun.
so
So
much.
fun.
Thanks, Jesse.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jesse. And yeah. Thank you, Dr. Bali. Yeah.